Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of our E3 post coverage. As always, I'm Terrell and this is Alex, my buddy. And we're going to talk in this video about the Nintendo conference and the developer conferences, and then it should wrap up our E3 series.
Yeah.
So, Nintendo really wasn't a conference per se, it was more like a big Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, they just put out, kind of their videos and just kind of show, this is what's coming up. This is what we have coming out for the year. There's some pretty exciting stuff, some bombshells going on. Where do you want to start on Nintendo?
First I think I want to hit on Skyrim. So,
everyone's favorite 2011 RPG.
Yeah, Nintendo, why? You might have been able to sell a few copies at launch if it had been a launch title, and it really makes no sense that it wasn't a launch title. We're talking about a 6 to 7 year old game that was announced when the Switch was announced, so you knew it was coming. I don't see any reason that the port should have taken longer than launch.
No.
Now, okay, cool, you're throwing in some Zelda mods. That would have been cool, again, 6-7 years ago, without having to rebuy another what's probably going to be a full price game.
Well, and that's the biggest thing that I wanted to hit on. And I know, I don't think there's confirmation on price yet. I assume it's going to be a full price game, but that's a 7-year-old game that's gone on sale for like, I think $5 or $10 on other platforms before. So paying $60 for a game that I've already put hundreds of hours into on another platform is...
Amiibo and Zelda plugins, it's not going to do it. It's not going to get me to rebuy it, and I'm sorry, it's too little too late. Again, you might have been able to sell some copies at launch just because of the lack of other titles, but at this point in the game, it's not going to happen. You might sell a few copies to people that never played it because they didn't have an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3, but otherwise, you've lost money on this deal.
Now, something a little bit more exciting, and something that I wasn't expecting it to look as good as it did, was the Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting combination, one that I never would have seen coming, but I like it. It's going to give us a little bit of Mario and a little bit of Rabbids, and the Rabbids were fun. Now, am I going to sit there and play this by myself for hours? Probably not. This is probably going to be a game where me and my wife sit down and have a good time on couch co-op, because that's what we did with the Rabbids games.
Yeah.
So
there's fun family games, sit down, do some couch co-op and stuff.
And that's something else we're lacking on, is a lot of good couch co-ops. And I think this will be a good title to not only go get the Switch a little bit more popularity, but just have some people that sit down and play. And I think Nintendo, that's what you've done well with the Wii, was getting people to sit down and play together. So I think this is another title that accentuates that.
Well, and all the leaks and stuff happening early on, I think also helped, because, again, if Nintendo would have come out and the first time you ever heard of this game was on like their E3 Nintendo Direct, most people wouldn't even be thinking about the game. They'd be like, what did you just say? And, it would have been months of people just like trying to wrap their heads around this game, whereas they got a lot of the maybe knee-jerk, I don't know if negative's the right term, but confused responses
the
out of the way.
Confusion, I think, is a big,
And so by the time it rolls around, people are more open-minded. They've gotten over those emotions, and they're ready to see what the game's about. And it does look pretty fun.
Yeah. Next we have Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Never played the first one, don't really know much about it. It looks cool. So I think the people that enjoyed the first will probably enjoy the second. But probably not something I'll pick up. There's too many other things. But it looked like it would be a good follow-up.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to get to the bombshells just yet. I was going to go to... I was just excited, even though it's nothing more than just a, hey, we're working on this, but that there's going to be a core Pokemon game for the Switch.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely something after they saw the success of Pokemon Go, even though it was a short-lived success, they knew people were interested in it, and not just the old-school Pokemon players. You're getting more people into it now. So it is exciting for those people like me who never really played them in the past years, just because I was too busy. I didn't have time, and in some cases the money to play it. And now that I do, it looks like something worth picking up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not really looks, but the fact that they're coming out with something, it's going to be good. You know it's going to be good.
Yeah, for them to take their time. I am a little bit against announcements so early because people build their expectations and form the game in their mind the way they think it should be before really seeing what they're planning on doing. But I really enjoy a lot of the Pokemon games. It'll be really cool to have one that I can take around with the Switch. I haven't really been taking my Switch around with me a whole lot lately.
Yeah, I haven't either.
And a game like this is something that'll get me to every day bring it to work so I can play it on lunch or something. That's what this game would get me to do, is bring the Switch out of the house and really start putting some more time into it.
Absolutely. So Zelda DLC, they talked a little bit about that. Solid game. DLC is probably going to be just fine. I don't know if it's anything worth getting too excited about. I mean, it's more of the same. But
yeah, I'm excited for it. I put so much time into Breath of the Wild in such a condensed period. I think I'm still kind of exhaling and still kind of coming off of that initial Zelda high, and kind of I still need a little bit more time to kind of reset myself to play more.
Sure.
But I mean, I am excited. I bought the season pass when I got the game, so I mean, I have it. I'll be ready to play it. And I'm not quite sure I'm ready to jump back in just yet.
Sure. And Nintendo, if you really want us to be able to jump into these games quicker, introduce some sort of trophy or achievement system. Because otherwise, you're not going to have people that are finding all 120 shrines and all the seeds, the Korok seeds and everything. There's just no motivation to do it.
Nintendo seems to kind of plant their feet firmly in the ground on some of these issues. And since achievements are in everything now, I was so certain with the Switch they would have added something. I have kind of mixed feelings. I was happy that I got to go through Zelda without, find 500 Korok seeds or something.
Sure.
Yeah. I got to get lost in the game, and I wasn't worried about stat tracking or anything or this or that. But at the same time, I really like the achievement / trophy systems that other consoles have.
And you don't have to go overboard with them. You don't have to have those really crazy ones like there was one in the last Lara Croft where it was throw a chicken in the air and hit it with a flaming arrow. You don't need those for Zelda. But some of the basics to play to, like, hey, there are 120 shrines. Here's an achievement when you get to 50. Here's an achievement when you get to 100. There's how many? 900 Korok seeds?
Yeah.
Maybe have some for that. But otherwise, there's really no incentive to do it because I only need so much health. I only need so much stamina. I only need so many slots before I can go and beat the game. And honestly, as it was, I had more than I needed. I just did it because I was trying to find more shrines and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So an achievement system, Nintendo, please. You don't have to go overboard with it, but at least do something to encourage your players to come back and play a little bit more in it.
More than an achievement system, I would like to be able to chat with friends on Nintendo without using my phone and an app and running it through this crazy setup. You have a headphone jack on it. Please, there's no reason I should be able to plug in to my Switch directly and chat with someone on a game. And I'm not going to get too far down this rabbit hole, but friend codes need to go.
Friend codes.
Nintendo.
Get with the times. It never should have been friend codes in the first place. There's no reason you can't do unique usernames and keep it at that. But friend codes, come on.
Yeah. Nintendo, you need to learn about the internet. You need to learn that it's a thing. You know, online functionality is important. I like a lot of the other stuff that you're doing. Fix these couple of things, and you'll really have,
give us an online
special.
marketplace. Be able to download virtual titles. I mean, I'm sure that's coming down the pipe at some point, but it is coming too slow.
It's coming too slow, and I know we're recording this, kind of late, but some of it does kind of make sense with the Super NES Classic. I think
you don't want to compete with your own little nifty hardware, but at the same time,
I do think that the Nintendo Classic and the Super NES Classic, that's a different market. That's the nostalgia. A lot of the people that buy that are, there's the core gamers, but there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I used to have a Nintendo when I was younger, and I've haven't really played video games, but this is $60. Cool. Like, let's pick it up.
But at the same time, they're so hard to find and so hard to get that it's not really going to take too much away from the marketplace if you did add it.
Yeah. And so Nintendo needs to get on the Virtual Console at some point. And I would like to see Virtual Console, up through, GameCube, Wii U. I would love to be able to get like Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD on the Switch. Twilight Princess is one of the few Zelda games I really never put a lot of time into. Just there's a lot of other stuff going on at the time. Wind Waker was one of my favorite Zeldas that I've ever played, and I would love the chance to go replay that. Especially on the go, especially having just everything loaded in there, on my Switch.
Sure.
So hopefully at some point we get those announcements, but I'm not...
You're just too slow, Nintendo.
Yeah.
Too slow. So
moving on.
Rocket League looks like one that's going to have a core set of people playing it, and it's probably going to be good for what it is. Doesn't really look like my cup of tea. Here's the thing. I would probably not mind playing it in a group setting.
Yes.
Outside of that, I probably wouldn't have any interest in it.
And with the Switch, since Rocket League, is roughly like a $20 game, getting a bunch of friends together, playing a few rounds of Rocket League is not a super involved thing. It's really easy to bring your Switches around. They connect wirelessly. That kind of connectivity for that game, I think, is going to be really cool. I'm not going to put a lot of time in a Rocket League, but I'm sure I'm going to buy it for those few times that we do play it.
Sure. A new Kirby. Solid announcement. Probably not the kind that's going to get you to buy more consoles, but almost adds to a needing library. So there aren't a lot of must-have titles, and this is going to add one that a lot of people just want to pick up because, hey, it's a solid franchise that's been going on for a while.
It's like I have a Switch. It's one of Nintendo's first-party characters and stuff. Kirby was never the biggest games for me, but I always owned them.
Yeah, and they're fun. And it's not something you feel like you need to put 100 hours into. Hey, here's half an hour here. Here's half an hour there. So, solid announcement, but nothing out of the ordinary for them, really. A new Yoshi title.
It's fleshing out that library.
It's probably not something I'll pick up, honestly. It kind of looks like it would be good for the young gamers, though. Well, so to draw in that 12 and under crowd, I think that's a solid.
We had Yoshi's Woolly World and some stuff like that people really enjoyed, and it starts to add more of those classic Nintendo characters and just fleshing out the library.
Well, and it gives you some diversity in player base too. So again, getting some of those younger players involved. Again, though, it's not something that I'm overly excited for.
Now, I was excited to hear about another Pikmin game. I played...
Yeah, Pikmin is one of those that I never got into. I played a few demos on them, but it just didn't seem that interesting.
When I initially bought my GameCube, Pikmin was one of the first games I got for it, and it was so much more fun than I ever thought it was going to be. Running around playing with your little guys, accidentally drowning a few, or getting them eaten by, giant bugs or monsters, and you just throwing them on the back as this monster's trying to eat it. It's all cartoony and fun, but you think about it, it's terrifying. It was a really fun, kind of whimsical, game, very Nintendo. And I'm excited for another installment, especially on some updated hardware. Maybe they can make the systems a little bit more complex, add some more types, add some more mechanics and stuff. I think it's a game that I'd really enjoy playing. And
since it's a game that's not so overly complicated, it's one where they could try to maybe push some of the graphic quality up a little bit and showcase something that can have a good animated style to it. So it's going to be a fairly solid title. It's just not really my cup of tea.
Yeah. Splatoon 2. That was coming out. I see where the appeal is, and if I was 8 to 12 years old, and maybe I wasn't really able to get into the Call of Duties or the Halos or something, it seems like a really cool game to have as a substitute for that, where it kind of gives you some of that PvP, rush and thrill, just without all the gratuitous violence.
And so again, it's sort of in the same line as the Yoshi game. Not my cup of tea, but it's another edition that's going to sell pretty well. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about it, but again, I think it's going to be best for that kind of teen and under crowd.
Now, getting semi-close to the end of some of the Nintendo stuff, you want to get to the bombshell that they dropped?
Yeah, I mean, Metroid Prime 4, holy crap.
Yeah, that was one of the few, like, jaw-dropping moments at E3 where, a lot of the conferences were kind of... Everybody knew what to expect.
Yeah, there was not a lot of big surprises. Nintendo...
This was one of them.
Yeah, Nintendo did well with this, and I really liked that they kept it simple, rather than trying to show us some of the developmental stuff. It's just, hey, here's the title, guess what's coming.
Yeah, it's just an acknowledgement of, hey, this is the thing. This is years away. Probably don't even have devs really actively working on it. We had somebody make a title screen for it, and that's it. And normally I am against games being shown that far in advance. I think this had more impact than if they just, I don't know, put out a press release saying, hey, we're working on it.
And this, I think, is more significant than, say, if they had announced, a new Castlevania or something. Like, Metroid has that following, and it's been a while since we've seen one of the Prime series and one of the good games. So, I mean, this was a big deal, and I'm excited to see where we go from here. I want to see... I want it now, So, kudos to Nintendo for that bombshell, because we didn't see it coming. But I'm excited to hear more about it.
Yeah, but I mean, is there anything that I'm missing on Nintendo's side?
They had a new Fire Emblem, and never been in that series, but it looks cool. For those people that have played those past games, I'm sure it's a must-have title. It looked good enough to pick up on its own, though. The graphics and play quality, it just looked good. It looked fun. Probably not a launch game for me, but later on I could see myself buying it. It looked pretty good. Outside of that, ARMS is already out now, but I gotta say, it doesn't really look like my thing.
ARMS doesn't look like something that I'll enjoy.
No, it looks like it'd be good for a one-time sit down of half an hour to an hour, play with your buddies, but it seems like something I'd rather play at an arcade in that, hey, you're going bowling. You got half an hour to kill. Go hit up the arcade and play some ARMS. Yeah. It doesn't seem like something I'd really want to play at home, especially not for hours on end. So
but I can
kudos to them for a new IP.
Yeah.
But it's going to have a limited audience, I think, and I think there's going to be a lot of used games soon for that. So
I wholeheartedly agree.
Again, kudos for the new IP. It's an interesting concept, and it's different from a lot of other things that have come out, but I don't know. I just don't see it being that big of a title.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that pretty much wraps up some of the bigger things for Nintendo. Kind of business as usual. Nintendo, we need to see some either achievement or trophy system like that. We need to get rid of stupid friend codes, and we need a digital marketplace. You do those three things, and it doesn't matter what you put out from then on out.
We need virtual console.
Virtual console. You could sell more than enough in virtual console to make up for any sort of hardware shortcomings or anything like that. If you just have a good library in your virtual console.
Open up the NES, the Super NES, the N64, the GameCube libraries, and I will drop $100 day one on just getting some of those games that I can take around and have them on the Switch, have them be portable.
If nothing else, the portability will sell itself.
Yep.
The fact that I can go play Super Metroid while I'm taking a flight somewhere, I mean, I think they underestimate the market share that could have. So if we get a couple of those things coming out, Nintendo, you could win this console battle. I mean, not in the terms of like outselling PlayStation. You're never going to do that.
Redeem themselves from the Wii U.
But
which I think to a degree they already have. But again, you want to keep the momentum in a positive motion rather than starting to go backwards.
Because you cannot afford to have another Wii U.
Yeah, and these are the things, and I know initial sales numbers are awesome. It's a new console. I would expect them to. But if they want to keep this going 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the line, these are the kind of features that you need to start adding in or need to start updating us about to ensure that console's continued success.
Because let's face it, you're not going to have that great third-party support, and you can only pump out first-party titles so quick.
Yeah.
So you need these things for the retro gamers to fill in those gaps in between. And if you do that, you could definitely redeem yourselves, and Nintendo would be a much more well-thought-of group.
Yes.
After the debacle of the Wii U. So
I agree.
Work on those, get them out, and I think we'll be happy.
Yeah.
So let's move to the developer conferences. Okay, so when we go into our developer conferences, what are some of the big ones that you're seeing?
I mean, we'll probably start with EA. They were they were the first developer conference. I know they weren't technically part of E3, but still the EA conference. There's a lot of stuff that I just didn't really care about, didn't excite me, but there's a couple notable ones. Battlefront 2 from Star Wars.
Yes, that looks super solid.
Yes, the graphics on it looks like they completely revamped a lot of the systems. One of my biggest complaints about, let's say, the first Battlefront, the first next-gen Battlefront, was that pickups for like heroes or some of the power vehicles were sort of random. Person's running along, they get one of the best heroes in the game and they just waste them. And it get a little bit frustrating because you could go days without ever really getting to play as one, or you get people just camping those drops. Now they switched to the battle point system where the better you do, the more people you kill, the more objectives you complete. It's you get to spend those points and call those heroes and vehicles in yourself. And I am wholeheartedly on board with that sort of system.
Yes.
And I think that's going to make that game a whole lot more fun.
And Darth Maul. Darth Maul looked amazing.
He does.
That in itself got me pretty excited because the gameplay on that looked really cool. And
the campaign, again, I know we've seen bits and pieces from this before, but just the campaign being from sort of the point of view of someone from the Empire and seeing how the events unfold for someone just kind of caught up in that war machine, seeing their take on the Death Star being destroyed and everything else, I think is going to bring kind of a unique view to the Star Wars universe. And I'm really curious to see, the campaign and where it goes and really sort of how in-depth that is.
Yeah, and I don't know, the footage that we saw looked good, and so I'm looking forward to it. I will probably end up buying that probably at launch. I would imagine.
Absolutely.
It just looks so good.
And any game that lets everybody get together and just get off Star Wars quotes for 2 hours is okay by me. They showed Battlefield DLC.
It's cool that they're opening up the Russian front,
and it's cool that they're adding story DLC.
Story was so well done with this Battlefield game. I'm curious to see how they continue it. Yeah,
those vignettes were really cool. I thought it was an amazing way of doing the game. I think coming out a year after the game launches is ridiculous. You're already going to start to get into like Destiny 2 and all the 2017 games launching. Am I really going to want to go pay and go play a small little story bit for a game a year ago? And I really enjoy Battlefield 1, but the player base drop off for that game has been far sharper than any of the other Battlefield games. Like, people are, they got into it, they did what they wanted to do, and a lot of people are leaving. And I feel like that DLC is almost just being sent out there to die.
Yeah, I think you're right. If it had been, say, 6 months ago, this would have been a really good announcement. This would have been a good launch. But again, it's one of those things of a little too late. It's a cool concept, but you're right. It's right in the middle of everything else that's going to be new, and DLC is not going to be on the top of the list there.
Now, EA did have, kind of in the vein of some of the Microsoft stuff and some of the other things, an indie game that looked really interesting, and that's A Way Out.
Yeah, A Way Out looked really cool as a good co-op.
Yeah, couch co-op game. The different characters and like who you choose to do certain tasks and how that story unfolds is really unique. It looks really cool. It started off looking like Shawshank Redemption, the game.
Yeah, and they really focused on couch co-op. They said, yeah, you can play it online, but couch co-op, again, that's something that, like, my wife and I have had a hard time finding is good couch co-op games. And this is so unique.
I can't remember anything off the top of my head that's in this kind of setting.
Yeah, so
60s, 70s, it looks like, and like, a big old prison and stuff. It'll be really interesting to see, more of that game. But I mean, I want to play that as soon as I can get my hands on it.
Yeah, that looks amazing. So good job, EA. That looked so good.
And I mean, that kind of fleshes out EA. The next developer, I guess we can go with Bethesda. I know we talked a little bit about some of their VR stuff. I was gonna get the negative out of the way first.
Yeah, here's the thing with VR, guys. You can't expect us to buy the same title for most games, because let's be honest. If I have something like Skyrim, that's again several years old, I don't want to pay full price. I don't want to buy it again. Even if it's not full price, I don't really want to buy it again to have a slightly modified experience.
I'm fine with a patch. 10, 20, maybe even 30 at the absolute most.
Yeah.
For like a VR patch to the game to unlock that functionality, I would understand. Because a lot of those games weren't initially conceived as VR games, and there's a lot of work and a lot of dev time that goes into creating that. And I'm totally okay with paying some
a moderate amount of money,
but I don't want to rebuy the game. And the other thing too is, I mean, this is more for Fallout, but I already put so much time into it. I have no desire to really go back into that universe.
Right. Now, Doom VR, that's a little bit of a different monster, because you're dealing with something that's,
and you can hop in and hop out.
Yeah, and it's in your face.
It looks like it'll be really intense.
Yeah, intense is a good word.
It's going to get your heart. It's going to get your heart pounding. It's going to be terrifying. But I mean, that's the kind of game that'll get your adrenaline going.
But these 100-hour adventure games, RPGs and stuff, if it's not out at launch, at least make it a fairly moderate download for the players that already own the game. But at this point in the game, it's just not something that I'm going to want to pay for.
Yeah. Now,
as its own experience.
Yeah. Really, the only other standout thing for me from Bethesda was Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein looked amazing.
Yeah. I was genuinely surprised. I wasn't as big of a fan of Wolfenstein, and I think it was called The New Blood. I played both of them, and I guess to me they just felt dated. They use a lot of mechanics from the
at release it felt old.
From the early shooter days. And I get that. I guess I just don't really care. It's like, oh yeah, this is how, the original games were, with item pickups and this and that.
But unless it is a remake of the original, we don't need that. Let's go ahead and modernize. Let's go ahead and that's what they did. What it looks like with this new Wolfenstein. It looks very solid.
Well, and the story and the characters, some of that interplay was really funny. It'd be kind of cool to see, kind of a fascist America, and see how Mr. Blazkowicz is gonna get through all that stuff. But the Wolfenstein did catch me off guard. I am excited to play it.
Yeah, I definitely am too. Ubisoft, really not a lot to talk about there. I mean, you got a new Far Cry, but we've already seen enough about that.
Yeah, and just saying,
Far Cry looks 5 good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good.
Looks amazing. The big one for me is Beyond Good and Evil 2. The cinematic they showed was phenomenal. I mean, it reminds me of like a Fifth Element video game. But the thing that really caught me is a few days after E3, they started coming out with like a behind closed doors demo. People didn't get to play it, but they showed some gameplay for it. And if Final Game can do anything close to what their ambitions are, to what they're trying to show and what they're trying to do, that is going to be an amazing game. I worry how long it's going to take for that game to come out, and I honestly don't think it's going to come out on this console generation. Yeah. I think that's going to be either kind of launch titles for PlayStation 5 or whatever Xbox is on at the time. And I mean, maybe there's a version on both, but I mean, I think we're looking at a minimum of 3 to 4 years before we see that game.
Yeah. Square Enix teased another Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer. I just want the game to be done. I'm tired of hearing about it for the last 3 years. I do want to play it. I was very much happy with the first two, and I've even got their mobile game. But come on, guys.
Just put it out.
Put it out. And I don't want it... I mean, I'm not saying I want it to be broken, but enough's enough. You've put it out for too long. We just need the game.
Yep. When you string stuff along... The longer games in development like that, people build those expectations. There's no possible way a developer can live up to them. And you just set yourselves up for, maybe a game that could have been a 9.5, 9.6 is like a 6.5.
Yeah.
And they need to just do whatever they need to do to get that game out.
Last and quickly, Assassin's Creed. I mean, it looks good. It looks like what we've come to expect from the newer Assassin's Creeds.
There's a couple things that I am excited for. I'm very picky with my Assassin's Creed games. It seems like every couple there's one that I'll really enjoy. I loved Black Flag. I thought Black Flag was incredible. But the several before it I didn't like, and I haven't liked any of them since. Origins looks interesting, especially since it looks like they're not going to focus a whole lot on the Animus and the present day future stuff, because I don't really care for those parts of the Assassin's Creed story. I really hope that some of those mythical beasts, like, what look like a basilisk and stuff, I hope that that's not like a dream sequence. It would be really cool to see some of that, pseudo God of War-esque kind of creatures and mythology intertwined into that game. And so we'll see. Again, that is a game that looks gorgeous. And I went back through and watched like the 4K HDR trailers and stuff for it, and it looks phenomenal.
So overall, I think we got a lot to look forward to.
Plenty of stuff to spend money on.
And it's spread out, although there's a lot for 2018 that I would rather have had a little bit earlier.
And there weren't as many fireworks or bombshell announcements this year, but I'm fine with that. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Just the rest of the later in the year, we have new hardware to look at. We have plenty of games coming out to be excited for, and then spring 2018 is just loaded at this point. So, I mean, over the next calendar year, there's going to be plenty. And I was really happy with a lot of the announcements. I got to start saving money now.
Right? Yeah. For sure.
Get prepped for a lot of that. Get prepped for the Xbox One X. And I'll be excited to see what happens at the PlayStation experience. And I know Microsoft's been sort of hinting that they might do a similar sort of event. Nothing confirmed.
They've hinted, and I'm sure we'll see some more from Nintendo Directs. But all in all, a solid conference. I know it didn't quite have the flair of some of the past ones, but how do you keep topping year over year? I mean, it's a good place to kind of reset, and I don't know, just in general, pretty solid.
Yep.
So that wraps up our E3 coverage. Thank you so much for coming by.
Well, if you guys made it through, watching all this, thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Let us
feedback.
know how we did.
If we misspoke, if something's wrong, just let us know in the comments.
If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down. Give us your comments. We'd always love your subscription. You can follow me on Twitter at ThaxCast. And you can follow Alex
at the Bodom Reaper. It's BODOM.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.